2NURFM, a broadcast service of the University of Newcastle.
Jim, always plenty to talk about. Fresh after an election, the Berejiklian government returned.
Yes,
What do you make of
Mark.
some of the results?
Well, it's a good result as far as the Liberal coalition is concerned. I mean, now they're sitting on 48 seats.
Majority.
Which means they've got a two-seat majority, which, all things being equal, will stand. I would expect that a couple of the really close seats might be appealed, and they might do another recount. Normally, they recount everything anyway, just to make sure, especially when there's such a close contest in some seats. But I would imagine that if someone's lost by 1% on the two-party preferred, they would probably be asking for a recount.
You'd be mad not to.
So that they could be assured that, it comes out much the same. So all things being equal, the coalition now has a two-seat majority. Labor has 36 seats, and then there are 9 other seats. The Shooters and Fishers Party, as you know, did very well and pulled 2 seats off the Nationals, and that's probably the biggest swings of the election. We had 19%, 20% swings away from the National Party.
One of the things I was hearing on election night was there is not really there's no substitute for having good local candidates campaigning on fairly localised issues as well as the big stuff. Do you think we saw a lot of that, particularly with some of the seats here in the Hunter?
Oh, most definitely. With the exception of Cessnock, most of the Hunter seats, Newcastle, Maitland,
Charlestown, Swansea.
Charlestown, Swansea, all saw first primary swings improvements for the Labor Party, but so did the Liberal Party in Terrigal and in a couple of other seats, and the Nationals down in Monaro as well.
So I suppose what the party should be doing is all of them is taking a look at maybe what those candidates are meaning in those areas and what their actual reach is beyond Team Red, Team Blue, Team Other.
Well, certainly, Mark. I mean, there are 2 points to be made about that. The first is that the Berejiklian government were very clever in their campaign, and come the last week of the campaign, they basically snookered the leader of the opposition and left him high and dry, basically. And that, I think, had a fairly huge impact in some areas. So good campaigning and smart moves were one thing. But the second issue, Mark, has more to do with how the federal coalition might respond. And one of the issues here, as you raise, is that good candidates who are connected to the local communities are really important. And in a number of areas, and I think the Labor Party is sort of guilty of this as well, they've chosen star candidates, or the candidates that they believe have star power who can pull the electorate along with them. But in many respects, what the state election shows us is that the voters generally have particular issues, some peculiar to their electorate, some peculiar to a more national, both statewide and national level issues. But one of the things that's really important, I think, and I'm not sure that the federal coalition has yet got this at all, Labor might have it, they might have come to this realisation, but basically the voters are sort of, let me put it this way, the parties are seeming to be out of step with the voters in many issues. So we have voters who are concerned about climate change in varying degrees and who are worried about the longer term futures. There are voters who are concerned about education and health, and what we saw with the Berejiklian government's campaign for re-election was that they really focused in on the longer term and could lay claim to a vision for the future that went beyond 2, 3, 4 years. And I think one of the things that the coalition at the federal level seems to lack and seems to be demonstrating almost with every day that they're only looking at tomorrow. They're only looking at whether they're going to get re-elected, or they're only looking at 3 years. Whereas I think that voters are wanting to see a little bit more longer term perspective and to allow the governments to have a vision that goes beyond their 3 years.
Mind you, a little bit of luck going your way can also help, like having an opposition leader not knowing how much money he wants to spend here or there, and a leaked video getting dropped a week before. That helps.
Well, those things do help, of course, and one would expect that they're trying to find the same thing against Bill Shorten.
You would think, though, that he's not going to make the same sort of mistake, being a far more seasoned politician.
Well, Mark, you know,
would think.
Mistakes can sometimes be manufactured, or things that you might have said in the past in a particular context, in a particular way, and I'm not making any excuses for Mr. Daly here, just simply that the principle of grabbing hold of someone's past speech and then running it out slightly out of context or whatever is a pretty smart and tried and true electoral tactic. So, yeah, there'll be things that Bill Shorten's probably said that he's now probably got his team going through scouring the past archives to make sure that
Get that off
they're
YouTube
prepared.
immediately. Can we close YouTube down for a couple of months?
But to come back to the key point, both parties, I think, need to be focusing on a longer term view of what they see as the direction for Australia, not simply the present get me re-elected and forget about the voters for the next 3 years. So that's one of the key lessons I think that the coalition at the federal level needs to learn if it's going to be successful against the Labor Party.
And they don't have any seats to play with. Well, the state election done. Jim will be obviously talking and focusing a little bit more on federal issues on the run-up to about May this year. You get yourself a week off, and when you're back, you'll be on location somewhere else. So that'll be a whole lot of fun too.
Yep, my pleasure, Mark. Look forward to it.
Our Professor of Politics, Jim Jose, on 2NURFM 103.7.